Welcome to our deep dive into the Stonewall Uprising.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about the historical context
Right.
and the lasting impact of this really important event.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at some articles
Mm-hmm.
and firsthand accounts
Right.
just to get a sense of what happened.
Yeah.
And you know why Stonewall is still so relevant today?
Okay.
So to set the scene,
Mm-hmm.
it's June 28th, 1969,
Okay.
1 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
in Greenwich Village
Right.
in New York City
Okay.
at the Stonewall Inn,
Yeah.
which was kind of this dimly lit mafia-owned bar
Right.
that was really popular with the LGBTQ plus community.
Absolutely.
But this wasn't just any night at Stonewall.
No,
This night sparked a movement,
it did.
and we're going to find out why.
Excellent.
So to really understand Stonewall, we need to talk about what life was like for LGBTQ plus people
Yes.
before Stonewall.
Absolutely.
So can you give us kind of an overview of that?
Yeah, sure. So back then, it wasn't just about social stigma.
Right.
LGBTQ plus individuals actually faced a really hostile legal landscape.
Okay.
For example, we had sodomy laws that criminalized same-sex intimacy in a lot of states.
Oh.
And then arrests for what they called cross-dressing.
Wow.
Those were really common, and these laws weren't just like, on the books. They
Right.
were actually used to justify all sorts of discrimination.
Okay.
Housing, employment, even access to public spaces.
Really?
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that, just a few decades ago,
It's wild.
you could be arrested
Oh, exactly.
for being who you are,
Absolutely.
for being yourself.
Yeah, and on top of that, imagine the pressure to conform.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was immense
Right.
because societal norms.
Yeah.
At the time, they were heavily influenced by the Cold War.
Okay.
That emphasis on traditional families.
Right. Traditional family structure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that further marginalized
Right.
LGBTQ plus individuals.
Okay. So you're saying that, during this time,
Yeah.
when people are terrified
Mm-hmm.
of communism
Absolutely.
and nuclear war,
Right.
being gay was seen as a threat.
Exactly. Like you said, it was seen as somehow subversive
Wow.
to the American way of life.
Really?
Yeah.
It's so interesting how these fears
Right.
kind of get wrapped up
Totally.
in this idea of who the enemy is.
Absolutely.
So were there groups at the time?
Yeah, so actually in the 1950s,
Okay.
you start to see these homophile groups emerge.
Okay.
Like one of the earliest was the Mattachine Society,
Okay.
and they really advocated for assimilation
Yeah.
and respectability.
Right, trying to blend in.
Yeah, exactly. Their idea was that by kind of presenting this non-threatening image,
Right.
they could gain acceptance.
Okay.
But, even they faced constant harassment. Oh, yeah. From the police, surveillance, all sorts of problems.
Wow. So even when they were trying to play by the rules,
Yeah.
it still wasn't enough.
It wasn't.
Wow. So despite all of this oppression,
Mm-hmm.
there were still pockets of LGBTQ plus life.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Especially in urban areas.
Okay.
Like New York City had this really vibrant,
Okay.
albeit kind of clandestine gay bar scene.
Okay.
But these bars,
Yeah.
they weren't exactly safe havens either.
Right.
A lot of them were run by organized crime.
Oh, wow.
So the patrons were vulnerable to exploitation.
Okay. So it's kind of like a catch-22.
It was.
It's like you need this space
right.
to be yourself.
Exactly.
But then the spaces themselves
Yeah.
were kind of dangerous.
Absolutely.
So can you talk a little bit about that? What was it like?
Yeah. So think overpriced drinks,
Okay.
the constant fear of police raids.
Oh, wow. So it was really this precarious balance
Mm-hmm. It was.
between providing refuge
Mm-hmm.
and then perpetuating this system of exploitation.
Exactly.
And then June 28th, 1969,
yeah.
this night happens.
Mhm.
That really changes everything.
Right.
So what makes that night different
That's a great question. It really is.
from all the other police raids?
Right. So we have another police raid,
Okay.
but this time something shifts.
Okay.
The patrons don't just back down
Oh, wow.
like they had before.
Okay.
And, there was a delay with the paddy wagon,
Okay.
and that really seems to have heightened tensions
Okay.
because the crowd outside the bar
Yeah.
just keeps growing
Right.
larger and angrier as the night goes on.
So it's almost like the delay itself.
Yeah, I think so.
Just amplified that frustration, that
Mhm.
sense of injustice.
Yeah. And you have to remember, like, these raids were routine.
Right.
They were brutal.
Yeah.
People were tired
Right.
of being treated like criminals.
Yeah, just for existing.
Exactly.
So it sounds like the tension
It
was
was.
just palpable.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You can feel it,
Yeah.
even just reading the accounts.
And then there were these specific moments
Okay.
that really seemed to spark
Yeah.
the uprising. Like
Right.
when the patrons started throwing coins at the police.
Oh, wow.
You know?
Yeah, yeah.
It was almost symbolic, this
Right.
rejection of the payoffs,
Right, like we're not
the bribes.
going to play this game anymore.
Exactly. This
Yeah.
had just become part of the system.
Wow. And then there was the beating
Right.
of Dave Van Rock,
Yeah.
who wasn't even a patron at the bar,
Right. He was just swept up
just in the wrong place
in the raid.
at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And then there was Stormae DeLarvery,
Yes.
this butch lesbian performer,
All right.
and it was her resistance.
Yeah.
Some accounts say that she actually shouted, "Why don't you do something?"
Right.
That seems to have really galvanized the crowd.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's like that moment really crystallized this sense of enough is enough.
Yeah.
You know?
Like we're not doing this anymore. So
Exactly.
you've got this powder keg of anger and frustration.
Total.
What happens next?
Things escalate
Okay.
pretty quickly.
Okay.
Multiple brawls erupt.
Wow.
Patrons are fighting back
Wow.
against the police. The officers are actually outnumbered.
Oh, wow.
They end up barricading themselves inside the bar,
Okay.
waiting for backup.
Wow.
And eventually, they call in the tactical police force.
Okay, so that's like,
New York City's riot squad.
oh, wow. So it's getting serious at this point.
It is.
Yeah.
And, just imagine this.
Okay.
Amid all this chaos,
Yeah.
a line of drag queens
Okay.
starts performing a can-can,
Oh, wow.
singing this playful, defiant song
Wow.
that actually, it seems like, momentarily stunned the police. Yeah, and this act of defiance
Yeah.
amidst all the violence,
Right.
it's such a striking image.
Right.
And I think it really speaks volumes about the spirit of resistance that night,
Right.
you know?
So the first night of the uprising ends,
Mm-hmm.
but the story obviously doesn't.
It doesn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Does the energy just fizzle out? What
Oh.
happens?
This is where people like Craig Rodwell come in.
Okay.
He was an activist, entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
He actually witnessed
Okay.
the events at Stonewall,
Okay.
and he really saw the potential
Right.
for a sustained movement.
Right. Like this isn't just
Yeah, it's not just a one-night thing.
a one-night event.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's something bigger.
Right.
So he helped organize
Okay.
further demonstrations,
Right.
recognizing that this was a spark
Right.
that could ignite lasting change. You know?
Yeah.
It wasn't just about letting off steam.
Right. It's not just about blowing off steam that night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was about turning that anger
Right.
into something constructive.
Right. Into a movement.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're starting to see this shift
Yeah.
from isolated protests to a more organized movement.
Right.
But it wasn't just about strategy, was it?
No, not really.
It feels like Stonewall
Mm-hmm.
really ushered in this new era of activism.
I think so.
One that was less focused on assimilation
Yeah.
and more about demanding
Mm-hmm.
full equality.
Exactly. Yeah. That shift is crucial
Okay.
to understanding the long-term impact
Yeah.
of Stonewall. So you have these groups like the Gay Liberation Front.
Okay.
They emerged around this time, and they're rejecting
Okay.
the Mattachine Society's whole emphasis on blending in.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
they see Stonewall as this call to action, this
Right.
rejection of societal norms that are trying to erase their identities.
So it's not just about being tolerated anymore.
No.
It's about embracing who you are
Yeah.
without apology.
Exactly. Without apology, you got it. And they drew inspiration
That's-
from other movements of the time,
Okay.
like the civil rights movement,
Right.
the anti-war movement.
Yeah.
They saw the fight for LGBTQ plus rights as part of this larger struggle
Right.
against oppression,
Okay.
injustice.
And this is where figures like
Yes.
Marsha P. Johnson
Right.
and Sylvia Rivera
Yeah.
come in.
Exactly.
These two trans women of color who played
Yeah.
such pivotal roles
Absolutely.
in the uprising
Yeah.
and the movement that followed.
Right.
Their presence at Stonewall really, really challenges the narrative
Yeah.
that this was solely
Right.
a white cisgender gay men's movement.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Johnson, she's often referred to as the mayor of Christopher Street.
Oh, wow.
And Rivera, this fierce advocate for trans rights.
Right.
They really helped broaden
Yeah.
the scope of the movement
Okay.
and their activism.
Yeah.
It highlighted the intersectionality
Right.
of LGBTQ plus rights with issues of race, class, gender identity.
Right. Right. It's this reminder
Yeah.
that the fight for equality really encompasses
Mm-hmm.
so many different experiences
Yeah,
and identities.
exactly.
But, you know, as we've been discussing, change isn't always immediate
Right.
or universal.
No, it's not.
So did Stonewall's impact
Mm-hmm.
really resonate equally across all communities.
That's a good question. And while Stonewall really galvanized the movement
Okay.
in major cities,
Yeah.
its impact wasn't felt as strongly
Okay.
in smaller towns
Right.
and rural areas.
And I guess for a lot of LGBTQ plus individuals
Yeah.
living outside these urban centers,
Yeah.
the struggle for acceptance kind of continued
It did.
in silence.
Yeah. Largely in silence.
And the upstairs lounge arson
Yes.
in New Orleans,
Right.
just a few years later,
Yeah.
really tragically illustrates this point.
It does. So this was 1973.
Oh,
A gay bar in New Orleans
right.
was deliberately set on fire,
Wow.
and 32 people died.
Oh, my gosh.
And the city's response, or lack thereof,
Yeah,
was appalling.
really.
Yeah, there were no official memorials, no public pronouncements of grief.
That's like it didn't even happen.
It's awful. And it took decades
Wow.
for the city to even acknowledge
Wow.
the event.
That's heartbreaking.
It is.
It shows that even after Stonewall,
Right?
there were still communities
Mm-hmm.
where being LGBTQ plus was met with
Yeah,
such hostility and violence.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it really underscores the fact
Yeah.
that progress isn't linear,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
There are going to be setbacks. There
Mhm.
will be tragedies.
Yeah.
But that spirit of Stonewall, that spirit of defiance,
Yeah.
resilience,
Yeah.
it continued to inspire.
Right.
You know?
The AIDS crisis
Yes,
in the 1980s.
Right.
That's another example
Absolutely.
of that spirit in action.
It is. So, faced with this devastating epidemic,
Right.
government inaction,
Yeah.
widespread fear, discrimination,
Mm-hmm.
LGBTQ plus activists, they mobilized again.
Wow.
You know, they channeled the energy
Yeah.
of Stonewall. They demanded recognition,
Right.
research funding, compassionate care
Yeah.
for those affected by the virus.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
This reminder that Stonewall wasn't just
Oh,
a moment in time.
no, it wasn't.
It was a catalyst.
Right.
That continues to shape the fight
Mm-hmm.
for LGBTQ plus rights.
Yeah.
Even today.
Absolutely.
So that kind of brings us to the question of its legacy.
Yeah.
How has Stonewall impacted the world we live in? It's
Yeah.
hard to overstate
It is.
the significance of Stonewall.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
from a single night
Right.
of defiance
Yeah.
in this tiny bar
Yeah.
in Greenwich Village,
Right.
this movement was born.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
Stonewall forced LGBTQ plus rights
It did.
into the national conversation.
Yeah.
It challenged these deeply ingrained prejudices and sparked this debate
Yeah.
that continues to this day.
Right. And it's not just about changing laws.
Right.
It's about changing hearts and minds.
Yeah.
It's about creating a world
Yeah.
where everyone,
Yeah.
regardless of their sexual orientation,
Yeah.
gender identity,
Yeah.
can live authentically, openly.
Openly and freely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing to think about
It is.
how much has changed
Yeah.
since that night in 1969.
Absolutely.
You know, we've seen incredible progress
Way out.
in terms of legal rights and
Yeah.
and social acceptance.
Yeah.
Same-sex marriage is legal nationwide,
It is.
and LGBTQ plus individuals
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
way more visible
Yeah.
than ever before
Absolutely.
in media and popular culture.
It's true.
But I think it's important to acknowledge that the fight for equality is far from over.
Absolutely, yeah. We still see
Right.
discrimination and violence
Yeah.
against LGBTQ plus individuals,
Ah.
particularly transgender people
Yeah.
and people of color.
Right.
And in many parts of the world, being LGBTQ plus is still criminalized,
Right.
punishable by imprisonment,
Wow.
or even death.
So Stonewall really serves as both a celebration of how far we've come,
Right.
and a reminder of how much work remains to be done.
Absolutely.
You know, it makes you wonder, what would those who were at Stonewall that night, what would they think of the progress we've made?
Yeah, what would they say about the challenges that still lie ahead?
What do you think they would say?
Oh, that's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
I imagine they would be both proud and impatient.
Okay.
Proud of the strides that have been made.
Right.
But impatient for full equality to be realized.
Yeah.
You know, they might remind us that Stonewall wasn't just about achieving specific legal rights, but about fundamentally changing the way society views and treats LGBTQ plus people.
It's a reminder.
It is.
That true equality isn't just about laws on paper.
Right.
It's about creating a culture of acceptance and respect.
Yeah, for everyone.
For everyone.
Yeah. And that requires ongoing effort.
Right.
Vigilance.
From all of us.
From all of us. It's about speaking up against discrimination.
Yeah.
Supporting LGBTQ plus organizations, businesses, and educating ourselves and others
about the issues.
About the issues.
The lesbian community.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Stonewall Uprising, what's the key takeaway you hope listeners will walk away with?
I think the most important lesson from Stonewall is that change is possible. That even in the face of overwhelming opposition, ordinary people can make a difference. Right. That standing up for what you believe in, even when it's difficult or dangerous, can have a ripple effect that extends far beyond yourself.
It's powerful.
It is.
This reminder that each of us has the power to create a more just and equitable world.
We do.
And it all started
with this group of brave individuals, who refused to back down on a hot summer night in Greenwich Village.
The Stonewall Inn still stands in New York City today. It's a testament to their courage and a reminder of this ongoing struggle for LGBTQ plus rights.
If you ever have the chance to visit, I encourage you to do so.
I do too.
Stand in that space, feel the weight of history, and let it inspire you to continue the fight for equality.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful image.
That is.
To end on.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Of course.
On this deep dive into the Stonewall Uprising. We hope you've gained a deeper understanding of this pivotal event.
It is.
And its lasting impact.
It's here.
And remember, the fight for equality is a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
And it's a fight that requires all of us
to
participate.
Absolutely.